Chapter 961. Team Reporter. The two reporters had come especially to conduct interviews for the Challenger League. They had more or less done their homework. Team Excellent Era was naturally one of the most important pieces of their homework. The team's owner, Dao Zhan, didn't appear in public too often, but the two still immediately recognized him. Boss Zhan. The two were pleasantly surprised. Hello, Dao Zhan nodded his head and greeted them. Then, he started asking about Team Happy's situation. You just said that there was no Yi Chu among the list of registered players in Team Happy? Yeah, take a look. The reporter took out his phone. The final name list was displayed on the phone screen. Dao Zhan glanced suspiciously at him. This reporter seemed a bit unnatural, but what could he do? They hadn't gotten this information underhandedly. At that time, the two had been running over here with Cao Guangcheng. In fact, the final name list had just been released on the Glory website's Challenger League page. From the list of names on the screen, Dao Zhan clearly saw that the name of the player behind Team Happy's Lord Grimm was Yi Shu. Yi Chu and Yi Shu had a difference of one letter, but for an official competition, which examined the identities of the players very strictly, this tiny difference was huge. Dao Zhan glanced at Kui Li and couldn't help but look at Su Mucheng too. His intuition told him that Su Mucheng definitely knew what was going on, but he didn't think he would get anything out of her. In fact, not letting Su Mucheng play was something that he didn't want to talk about either. Excellent Era's group of people left the hotel. As a powerhouse, lining up and waiting for a taxi would be too lowly. Club Excellent Era had already arranged a vehicle for them. Their boss, Dao Zhan, didn't arrange anything specifically for himself and also got on the luxurious bus together with the other players. Esport Home's three reporters followed Excellent Era's people onto the bus as well, but they soon discovered that their main targets, Excellent Era's boss and manager, didn't have any open seats. The three tactfully found an open seat in the back to sit down. Afterwards, those two reporters smiled exuberantly as they looked for interview targets. Cao Guangcheng glanced coldly at them and sneered. Those two didn't have any experience as team reporters. Team reporters had much more time and many more opportunities to interview a player compared to normal reporters, so there was no need to chase after targets and bombard them with questions. Great team reporters would try to become members of the team, thus allowing them to know the true face of each of their players. Their interactions with each other would be like friends chatting. They would use their eyes and ears to look for interesting material among the countless trifling details. Then, they would use that to supplement their writing to produce an article that could not be done by another reporter in terms of content and perspective. But these two were grabbing players as if they were conducting interviews. That was too inappropriate. True, all of Team Excellent Era was here, but did they plan on doing 8 interviews in one trip? It wasn't that simple. If they wanted to conduct an interview, then even as team reporters, they had to follow the standard procedure and request permission from the clubs first. Two reporters excitedly went around in a circle, and soon realized that the players from Excellent Era weren't happy with them. Unfortunately, the two still didn't know what they had done wrong. They went back to their seats and grumbled to themselves in fear. They snuck a glance at Cao Guangcheng and saw that he didn't seem to know what a rare opportunity it was right now. He was sitting with so many newsworthy people around him, and yet he was actually leaning against the window and dozing off. The two reporters didn't dare to randomly look for players again. They could only strain their ears and try to listen to what the Excellent Era players were chatting about. However, the bus was completely silent. Only boss Dao Zhan and Kui Li, who sat together, were chatting about something. However, the two didn't dare to move closer to eavesdrop. There's actually no Yi Chu. After Dao Zhan sat down, he spoke to Kui Li. Kui Li also took out his cell phone and went online to check. Not only did he look at Lord Grimm, he also checked everyone in Happy. There was no Yi Chu, but what was going on with the berserker at the bottom of the list? Sun Jeping, Dao Zhan had only seen Lord Grimm on that reporter's cell phone. He hadn't scrolled down. When he looked at the list on Kui Li's phone, he was dumbfounded. He had been in the scene since the beginning of the alliance. How could he forget Sun Zeping's name? Why did he end up on their team? Dao Zhan couldn't understand. Kui Li didn't know either. He only knew that this addition would only make Team Happy even more terrifying. Was Team Excellent Era's chances of beating Team Happy still 100%? Kui Li wondered, but he didn't dare to say anything out loud. Let's put that aside for now. What's going on with Yi Chu? Dao Zhan was puzzled. After exposing Yi Chu for forming Team Happy to Esports Home, confirming that Team Happy had no Yi Chu in their roster, they had discussed this matter not just once. In the end, they always believed that when the offline matches came, Yi Chu would have to join them. As for Yi Chu, it was probably some random person that they found. In any case, the online matches weren't supervised, so there was no evidence that Yi Chu was the one secretly controlling Lord Grimm. There was nothing they could do about that. Why would they go so far as to find a Yi Chu? In Excellent Era's eyes, it was so that Happy wouldn't be exposed to the public. If that happened, the pressure from the fans would be too great, but in the offline matches, the organizers checked identities very strictly. Only the real person himself could come. Who would have thought that in the offline tournament, Yi Chu would still be Yi Chu? Was Yi Chu not going to be appearing on stage? To Excellent Era, this should have been very good news, but neither Dao Zhan nor Kui Li could smile. Their intuition told them that this wasn't good news. There should be a scheme somewhere hidden in here. It looks like we'll need to personally pay him a visit, Dao Zhan said. When they arrived at the designated hotel provided by the Challenger League, the Excellent Era players needed to go to the reception desk and sign in. At this moment, there weren't any other participating players left in the hotel lobby, so Excellent Era didn't receive too much attention. Did Team Happy's Yi Chu arrive yet? After signing in, Kui Li immediately got right to the point and asked an Alliance employee. No, the employee shook his head. He wouldn't recognize Yi Chu, but he was the person responsible for signing players into the hotel. He hadn't seen the name Yi Chu appear yet. In fact, there was also quite a big discussion going on among the employees in private. Then what about this Yi Chu? Which room was he in? Kui Li asked. Team Happy was allotted Section A 7th floor rooms 721 to 726. We don't know which room he's in exactly, the employee answered. Okay, thanks. Kui Li didn't ask further and returned to tell Dao Zhan. Cao Guangcheng was neither close nor far away. He had a general understanding of what was going on and was also astonished. Soon afterwards, Dao Zhan and Kui Li went towards the Section A elevators. It wasn't convenient for Cao Guangcheng to follow them. He could only follow the Excellent Era players back and get on the bus. The other two Esports Home reporters were feeling awkward. Should they go on the bus or not? Excellent Era didn't invite them. If they went on the bus, they would still be sitting quietly in the back like they had been before. Even if they went to the hotel, there might not be any interview opportunities either. No, it's still better to go. The two discussed with each other for a bit. If they didn't go, they might not be able to get any piece of the big fish. When the time came, Cao Guangcheng's article would definitely be related to Excellent Era. If they wrote about other teams, how could they vie for the front page? They had to get on the bus. They even changed their hotels to live together with Excellent Era. The two came to a decision and then immediately pretended to laugh as they boarded the bus. How brave, Cao Guangcheng guessed their intentions and gave them a thumbs up in praise. The two knew that he was mocking them. They didn't answer back. After boarding the bus, they found seats and didn't dare to worm their way closer to the players. Cao Guangcheng sat in the middle of the bus. He was wondering about what was up with Yi Chu too. That kid Chang Xian had been following Team Happy the entire time. Maybe he knew something? Even though he felt that the teams besides Excellent Era were beneath him, his reporter's intuition told him that he should ask Chang Xian. He immediately took out his phone and made a call. He was familiar with Excellent Era. From the top to the bottom, he was basically a member of Excellent Era. He didn't feel any qualms about doing this. When he got off the bus and started dialing, Cao Guangcheng saw a person get out of a car in front of the hotel main entrance. This person seemed very familiar. Who's that? Cao Guangcheng looked from a different angle. He moved closer 2 steps and suddenly recognized him. This was the Alliance's chairman, Feng Xianjun. Getting an interview with such a powerful person was even more difficult. A team reporter like him had many opportunities to meet, chat, and even be on friendly terms with a team's owner. He might even have the possibility of requesting an interview. However, a team reporter didn't have the status to request an interview with the Alliance's chairman, Feng Xianjun. Only the editor-in-chief of Esports Home had the appropriate status. Usually, getting a reply to 1 or 2 questions at a press conference was enough to feel blissful. Those 2 idiots were only fixed on excellent era and missed such a grand character. Cao Guangcheng laughed inwardly at his 2 colleagues. He stopped caring about his phone call and immediately walked over. Feng Xianjun's group had 3 people. When they arrived at the lobby, the alliance employees obviously recognized their big boss and got up. Cao Guangcheng moved closer and easily overheard their conversation. The first thing he heard was, "Where is Team Happy staying?" "Section A, 7th floor, rooms 721 to 725, the employee replied. Cao Guangcheng was shocked. It looked like the alliance's chairman had come here for Happy? How capable was Happy? Wasn't Happy just another team that would be eliminated in the offline tournament? Was that worthy of being noticed by the alliance's chairman? Even if this team had the halo of Yi Chu surrounding it, that still wasn't enough. No, Cao Guangcheng was completely at a loss. Chapter 962. Real and Fake Identity. Cao Guangcheng really wanted to pounce on Feng Xianjun and pry some answers out of him, but even if he had times the 10 guts, he wouldn't have enough to do that. Feng Xianjun's group of 3 merely asked for Happy's room numbers before turning and leaving for elevator A. The staff that received them looked nothing but confused. The staff began a whispered discussion among themselves, but when they turned their head, what they saw was Cao Guangcheng gaping like a fish. Cao Guangcheng was a well-known journalist and had checked in, obtaining his pass today, so the staff obviously recognized him. Reporter Cao. The call woke Cao Guangcheng from his stupor. How could Cao Guangcheng, who had returned to the present, still have his mind on the problem of interviewing or not? His mind had already supplied a scene for him, inside Happy's room, excellent era's 2 big heads and the chairman of the alliance. What scene would all these big shots sitting together make? As his thoughts churned like this, Cao Guangcheng couldn't stay standing around and waiting anymore, dashing to elevator A like a cheetah. However, out of the 3 elevators, 1 had just left and 2 were still at floors above 10. Cao Guangcheng was extremely impatient. Then he thought, well, it was just 7 floors, and whirled around for the stairs. As he ran, he took out his phone. Was Chang Xian still with Happy's members? Hey, brother Cao, Chang Xian answered the call, and by his tone, he seemed pretty cheerful. Where are you? Cao Guangcheng asked. In the hotel, Chang Xian replied. Which room are you in? Cao Guangcheng asked. 723, Chang Xian had noticed the anxiety in Cao Guangcheng's tone. Who's in that room? Happy's team members. Steamed Bun and Luo Ji. Chang Xian wasn't a stranger to the members of Happy anymore. He was even playing around in Steamed Bun and Luo Ji's room now. Though no one had ever taught him, Chang Xian had a talent for being a team reporter. He didn't try to pry information out of these guys as soon as he saw them, but truly became friends with them, especially with the younger few. Which room is that guy called Yi Shu in? Cao Guangcheng asked. 722. Get over there quick, Cao Guangcheng ordered. Why? Chang Xian couldn't understand. Room 722 was Yi Shu and Wei Chen's room. In front of these 2 veteran players, Chang Xian always felt pressured, so when he was free and wanted to relax, he wouldn't seek those 2 out. Chang Xian was closer to Steamed Bun and Chao Yifan. Since Luo Jian and Wen Yi weren't often at Happy, he was more distant with them. Even though he wasn't as close with them, it was much less nerve-wracking than being with Yi Shu and Wei Chen. Thus, hearing that Cao Guangcheng wanted him to go to Yi Shu, Chang Xian involuntarily questioned him. Hurry up and go. I'll be arriving soon, Cao Guangcheng yelled. Chang Xian was stunned for a moment. The call had already been ended, but by now, he had realized that this was probably implying that there was huge news to report. I'm going to visit the room opposite, Chang Xian informed Steamed Bun and Luo Ji before charging out. Yi Shu and Wei Chen's room 722 was just on the other side of the hall from 723. Room 722's door was unlocked, and as Chang Xian approached, he immediately heard voices coming from inside. It didn't sound like Yi Shu or Wei Chen. Chang Xian didn't dare dawdle, hurriedly knocking on the door. Hearing a voice inside telling him to enter, he immediately charged inside. There were many more people inside than he had expected. There were 4 from Team Happy alone. Yi Shu, Wei Chen, Chen Guo, and Tang Ruo were all inside. There was also another 2 who were standing inside, having yet to sit down. Hearing Chang Xian entering, everyone looked at him. Chang Xian instantly recognized the two people standing. It was Excellent Era's owner and manager, both big shots. Dao Zan didn't know Chang Xian, but Kui Li felt that he was a little familiar. As a reporter stationed in City H, Chang Xian had come to Excellent Era a few times, but he was usually there to run errands for Cao Guangcheng. For Excellent Era, he might recognize others, but others usually didn't recognize him. "You're here, little Chang," Yi Shu greeted him then, but didn't say anything after that. "Ah, you seem rather busy," the average person would leave upon seeing that the others seemed occupied with something. However, Chang Xian was a reporter and it was his job to be a bit more nosy than was usual. Seeing the two big heads of Excellent Era here, he knew there was bound to be drama, so there was no way he was going to leave. He stood there dumbly and Happy's members didn't chase him out. Kui Li, in the end, didn't manage to figure out where he had seen this familiar young man before. Dao Zan had the air of a boss, merely glancing him over before dismissing him. Even if you wanted to ask someone to leave, it wasn't the job of a boss. He turned away, saying what he wanted to say without caring about anyone else. "So this is where you are? What about that captain of yours, Yi Shu? Where is he? I want to meet him," Dao Zan said. Hearing this, Chang Xian was confused. Captain Yi Shu? Wasn't he right in front of them? Was the boss of Excellent Era drunk? Chang Xian sniffed, not smelling any alcohol, and then he saw Captain Yi Shu smile and say, "Yi Shu? Isn't that me? You really dare to admit it?" Dao Zan gazed at him. "Why wouldn't I dare?" Yi Shu smiled uncaringly. "Are you crazy?" Kui Li, standing beside them, couldn't figure out Yi Shu's attitude. "You're using a fake identity to play. Do you really think that everyone is blind or something?" "Who said that this identity is fake?" Yi Shu retorted. "Haha," Dao Zan laughed dryly upon hearing this. "That's the funniest joke I've ever heard. If this identity isn't fake, then are you going to tell me that Yi Chu was a fake identity? Don't think that because barely anyone recognizes you, you can go around changing your identity freely, Yi Chu." Bang! The door to the room suddenly slammed heavily. Everyone looked around and saw that it was Chang Xian, who hadn't really moved after coming in. Hearing Dao Zan's words, he had been unable to stay standing straight, stepping back and slamming the unlocked door into its place, which was now locked. He stared, dumbfounded, at Yi Shu, his face full of surprise. He opened his mouth, wanting to speak, but couldn't manage to make a sound. Captain Yi Shu was Yi Chu? So that many had seen the god Yi Chu that Brother Cao had never seen multiple times? And even spoke to him a lot? He had even interviewed him already? But how could he also be Yi Shu? And how could he use Yi Shu's identity to register? Using a fake identity to enter the alliance? That was a serious violation of rules. The entire team might be punished because of it. How could they do something this? Though not many people recognized God Yi Chu, there were still some. Like his ex-teammates from Excellent Era, they must recognize him, so wouldn't he be caught easily? Chang Xian's head was full of question marks had quickly turned towards Yi Shu in worry. That's when he saw Yi Shu rise and look towards Dao Zan with a smile. You guessed it. In reality, Yi Chu was the fake identity. This isn't a joke, but a lie. What did you say? Dao Zan and Kui Li stared in shock at this. Back then, the alliance was just starting out and the teams had only just been formed. Management wasn't as structured and orderly. Many people had to go against the rules to become pro players, especially when it came to age. You weren't of age? Dao Zan frowned. When the alliance was just starting, without the same industrial system and commercial outlook of the present, there were naturally many strict rules regulating it. For example, those who weren't 18 yet couldn't become pro players. That was a rock-solid rule at the time. After all, video games had long since been seen as a sort of digital heroin. A pro-alliance was a gathering for this addiction in the eyes of many people. They couldn't do anything but prevent underage people from entering, or else there would be an unbearable pressure from the outside world. However, while there might be policies from above, there were ways to deal with them down below. To avoid the restrictions placed by this rule, faking your age became a trend of the early years of the alliance, but Dao Zan knew Yi Shu from before the alliance was formed. He had known Yi Shu's age before that and it met the requirements set by the alliance back then. It wasn't possible that Yi Shu had predicted the formation of the alliance and the rules and made a lie preemptively. No, Yi Shu shook his head. My situation was much worse than being underage. Back then, I didn't have an ID card. So you made a fake ID, Dao Zan exclaimed in shock. Not exactly, I just borrowed someone else's ID card, Yi Shu said. Someone else's? Dao Zan and Kui Li looked like they were listening to a cultivation novel. Yeah. Does having a twin make this seem like the plot to a novel? Yi Shu asked. Twin? Dao Zan and Kui Li thought that cultivational novels were far too weak compared to the story they were hearing now. Yup, that's how it is. I used my younger twin brother's ID to register in the Yishu I'm using now as my real identity, Yi Shu summarized. This, Dao Zan felt a little dizzy. Something seemed a little wrong about this, he needed to think for a moment. Kui Li managed to react rather quickly though and immediately sneered. You can't possibly think that now that you're using your real identity everything would be like nothing happened. Do you think people are stupid? Of course not, Yi Shu shook his head. So that's why we all have to deal with this problem carefully. Kui Li looked like he had just heard a joke. Yes, Yi Shu nodded solemnly. Back then, I was a part of Excellent Era, no? And I even used this identity to win 3 championships for Excellent Era, or have you forgotten? Kui Li didn't know how to react and Dao Zan finally realized what he had felt was wrong about this. This guy's use of a fake identity was strapped to Excellent Era's name. So now, not only could Dao Zan no longer use this fake identity issue to bring Happy down, he had to do his utmost to cover it up instead. He had to do it, not for this guy, but rather for Excellent Era. Chapter 963. Let's make the storm even more violent. Reporter Chang Xian felt the urge to rush out the door. It was true that he was a reporter and that he needed all sorts of fresh news topics, but the information he just heard was too fierce, so fierce that he was having trouble standing up. The greatest god in the history of glory, Yi Chu, was actually a fake identity? Since the founding of the Glory Alliance, this was the biggest what? Chang Xian wanted to use the word scandal to describe it, but from the bottom of his heart, he didn't consider it a scandal. The person in front of him was using a fake identity, but he was still the one playing in the competitive matches. The opponents were defeated by him, and the victories were won by him. Yi Chu monopolizing all sorts of honors and being a three-peat champion were all completely genuine accomplishments. However, these accomplishments didn't belong to Yi Chu, but rather the person in front of him. His actions may have violated the alliance's rules, but they didn't have an effect on anything from a competitive standpoint. He was borrowing an identity, but he was the one playing. In comparison, those players, who lied about their age, broke the fairness of the competition more heavily, no? This was why Chang Xian felt conflicted. It was groundbreaking information. If it was revealed, he might even become famous in an instant. However, at the same time, he would cause a lot of harm to many people. Yi Shu, Team Happy, Team Excellent Era, and their countless fans would need to bear the pain. If it was a scandal like taking stimulants during a match, Chang Xian wouldn't feel ashamed to report it. However, Chang Xian didn't feel like this could be considered that type of scandal. It was just borrowing an identity. Everything else was completely real. Every match, every victory, and every championship win were genuine. The only exception was that the person called Yi Chu wasn't actually Yi Chu. That didn't affect the outcome of a match though, did it? Yi Shu said he didn't have his ID card back then, so he used someone else's. That was clearly out of helplessness. Afterwards, he never changed it after so many years because once you ride a tiger, it's hard to get off. Perhaps there were other reasons too, but Chang Xian didn't know. He just felt like using another identity in this way shouldn't be counted as fraud. It was because of this thinking that Chang Xian didn't know how to handle this information. He was very conflicted. Going left and right made him feel bad. He regretted entering this room. He wished he could travel back in time. He would definitely avoid this room and walk away. Thinking about all of this was already too late. Chang Xian's thoughts were in a whirl. How could Excellent Era's Dao Zan and Kui Li not be the same as him? This news was like thunder to them, but what made the two even more annoyed was that after Yi Shu leaked such a huge secret, he looked as nonchalant as ever. It was as if this matter had nothing to do with him anymore. He looked like he was sitting there watching a show. If this is taken seriously, you would have to undertake legal responsibility for identity theft. Kui Li couldn't bear seeing that guy's nonchalant look any longer. He suddenly spoke coldly. His threat was as clear as day. But Yi Shu still had that annoying nonchalant look on his face. Yeah. Do you guys plan on taking this seriously? Kui Li coughed blood. This guy was truly shameless. Take this seriously? What did that mean? Take Yi Shu to court and accuse that he stole someone else's identity to sign several contracts with them? How was that any different from exposing the truth? Should an excellent era be trying to cover this up and not get even more deeply involved? What's more, if an investigation was made, although excellent era would legally be in the right, they would certainly receive criticism from a moral perspective. Yi Shu may have impersonated as someone else, but his contributions to excellent era were still genuine. If excellent era made such an investigation, it would be a model example of gaining a favor and calling it a disfavor. This move would not be wise. As for bringing in the person who got his identity stolen, that was even more of a fantasy. That guy was his twin brother. It's not like they could count on the other side to stand out and tell his own brother to get punished by law for stealing his identity. I want to confirm something. Dao Zhan finally spoke. Over all these years, you were the one competing the entire time, right? Your brother, the real Yi Chu, never appeared in a match before, right? It's always been me. It's not as much of a mystery as you're making it out to be. Yi Shu smiled. That's good then. That gives us a lot of room to work around with. Dao Zhan had been struck by thunder too, but he was still stronger than his subordinate, Kui Li. He didn't lash out because of Yi Shu's attitude. He had already calmed down and started thinking about how to deal with this matter. The Alliance wouldn't want to accept this truth either. A three-peat champion, the greatest player of all time, the Alliance's #1 god, yet that player's identity was actually fake. It would be a big blow to the Alliance's reputation. Dao Zhan thought about things from a management perspective. The Alliance wouldn't want this information to be known to the public either. But he's about to appear in a match. There has to be good explanation for that, Kui Li said. As long as we communicate it with the Alliance internally, an explanation to the public should not be too difficult, Dao Zhan said. That makes sense. Yi Shu nodded his head. It's best if we hurry and talk with the Alliance. How should we go about telling them this? Dao Zhan started thinking, when he heard a knock on the door. Everyone in the room suddenly felt like thieves that had been caught. The one closest to the door, Chang Xian, hadn't regained his calm yet. He asked with a trembling voice, "Who is it?" "It's me, Feng Xianjun." "Feng Xianjun? Who's that? It sounds kind of familiar?" The reporter interacted with lower-level people, so it was hard to avoid reacting slowly to such a big name. As for the two from Excellent Era, after being struck by thunder, they were dealt with another blow. Kui Li had to support himself by leaning against the wall. Dao Zhan no longer kept his calm like before. He had analyzed things well and was preparing to find someone in the Alliance to talk to, but who would have thought that the F*King Alliance chairman would directly come over? The ones from Happy could no longer keep their spectator mentality. Chen Guo decisively suggested, "Should we hide? The restroom? Underneath the bed?" The calmest one was still Yi Shu. He had a smile on his face like he didn't care. Forget about it. What's to come will come. Dao Zhan's analysis of the pros and cons are very clear. I don't think it'll be difficult to make things clear. Okay, open the door. Dao Zhan knew that they would need to face Feng Xianjun sooner or later. He was already at their door, and Dao Zhan wasn't the type of person who ran away. Chang Xian had finally realized that the person outside was the Alliance chairman. He was extremely shocked. It made him feel like the storm was about to get even more violent and began to calm down. He opened the door quite calmly. "Oh, there's quite a lot of people here." Feng Xianjun entered and saw Excellent Era's Dao Zhan. He was quite surprised. Dao Zhan smiled and went forward to greet Feng Xianjun. Feng Xianjun looked around the room and saw Yi Shu. He laughed and pointed with his hands. "Yi Chu, so you're really here." Chang Xian suddenly felt that an even more violent storm was about to come. At this moment, the two others with Feng Xianjun entered the room. At the stairway, Cao Guangqing had just sprinted up 7 flights of stairs and was gasping for air. He saw them go in and immediately sprinted forward again. He saw that the door was slowly closing and hastily shouted, "Wait." Chang Xian stretched out his neck to have a look. It was Cao Guangqing. He was immediately filled with joy. He had no idea what to do with this information, but everything would be fine with Brother Cao here. From when he entered the room to now, it was his first time feeling relaxed. Just when he was about to open the door to let Cao Guangcheng in, Kui Li immediately asked, "Who is it?" "It's our correspondent station's brother Cao," Chang Xian hastily answered. "Correspondent station? Brother Cao?" Kui Li realized who it was and immediately responded, "Cao Guangcheng? Shut the door." "Ah. Shut the door." Chang Xian didn't dare utter, "No." He promptly closed the door in panic. Cao Guangcheng was almost there. He could see that Chang Xian had ignored his shout and locked the door. He was furious. That little brat. He was usually so well behaved and kind. Who would have thought he was actually so cunning? "You plan on monopolizing this piece of news?" Cao Guangcheng was in a rage, but he didn't dare go out of control in front of the people in the room. When he reached the door, he calmed down and knocked politely. "Reporter Cao, right? Please go back. It's not a convenient time for an interview." Kui Li's voice came through the door. Cao Guangcheng listened and his body turned ice cold. He understood excellent era's people. Kui Li was saying that he'd better not think of even trying to get in. Not a convenient time for an interview? That F** King brat Chang Xian was in there. Why did things turn out this way? You'd let Chang Xian watch from the sidelines, but you won't let me in? What method did that little brat Chang Xian do? Impossible. He was a young and green little kid. What method could he have to monopolize excellent era all for himself? Cao Guangcheng was furious, but he didn't dare make trouble. He took out his phone and called Chang Xian, but Chang Xian's phone was turned off. F***ck. Cao Guangcheng cursed. He couldn't go in, but he wasn't willing to leave either. He went up against the door and tried to see if he could hear anything. However, the hotel picked by the Alliance wouldn't have such poor walls. If the people inside talked normally, he had no chance of hearing them. Cao Guangcheng despaired. In the room, Feng Xiangjun felt that the atmosphere was a bit strange. Kui Li was angry again because when he heard Chang Xian talk to Cao Guangcheng, he finally realized who this person was. He was a reporter. Internal communication, how could a reporter count as someone from the Alliance? At this moment, the people that they needed to guard against the most were reporters. But they had actually talked about all of this in front of a reporter. He and Dao Zan didn't know Chang Xian was a reporter, but how could those people from Happy not know? Yi Shu, did your brain turn to mush? When he came in, how could you not know to shoo him away? Are you deliberately trying to make things harder for us? Kui Li really wanted to strangle Yi Shu. As for Feng Xianjun, he felt like the atmosphere was a bit strange, but he didn't ask about it. He continued to the main subject without beating around the bush. It seems like you're happy has someone called Yi Shu? Ha 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 ha, Yi Shu laughed. He kicked Wei Chen, who was sitting on the sofa. Chairman, have a seat first. What is it? Feng Xianjun once again felt the strange atmosphere in the room. He walked over and sat down. How's your heart been these days? Yi Shu asked. Quote. If your heart's fine, then listen up, Yi Shu said. What do you want to say? I'm Yi Shu said. Chapter 964. To seize an opportunity. Feng Xianjun deserved to be called the Alliance's chairman. He had seen all sorts of winds and waves. To Dao Zan, Kui Li, and Chang Xian, this news was like thunder to them, but after Feng Xianjun heard it, his expression remained calm. His eyebrows only wrinkled a bit. Soon afterwards, he extended his hands to his attendants. Medicine, author's note, the attendants sang, yo, check it out, quiek now. Could I have a janbing, and then quickly rushed out to buy janbing. The chairman's heart failed, and he passed away. I really wanted to write it like this. But I don't think everyone would be able to accept it. Okay, forget about this apart, asterisk. Yi Shu's concern for Feng Xianjun's heart wasn't without reason. The attendants by Feng Xianjun's side took out some heart-relieving pills in a panic. Yi Shu, on the other hand, already had a cup of water in his hand. The others looked at the painful expression on the chairman's face and felt sympathy for him. After swallowing the pill, Feng Xianjun rested for 5 minutes before fully recovering. He let out a long sigh. Do you need to go to the hospital? Yi Shu asked. Feng Xianjun glared at him and then sucked in a deep breath before asking, what's going on? Everyone fixed their attention on the chairman's reaction. The room was completely silent. Dao Zan felt sweat forming in his palms. From his understanding, Feng Xianjun cared very much about the alliance's development, so Dao Zhan felt like they should be able to reach a consensus on this issue, but before the chairman gave his statement, he still felt very nervous. What if Feng Xianjun shook his head and said no? Retreating back a step after that would be too difficult. Right now, it wasn't that the arrow was pulled back and the bowstring waiting to be released, but rather that the arrow was already flying and they were just waiting to see if it would hit. What does your brother do? Feng Xianjun suddenly asked. He does many things. You're not thinking what's wrong is wrong and treating him as the original Yi Chu, right? That loophole is way too big, Yi Shu said. There's no need for that. I just wanted to confirm that you were the only one playing in the matches. Definitely, Yi Shu nodded his head. Feng Xianjun's concern was identical to Dao Zhan's. Now that this issue had come up, Dao Zhan let out a sigh of relief. He knew that the alliance's test had been passed. How do you plan on explaining this issue? Feng Xianjun looked around the room. Pseudonym, name change, anything works, Dao Zhan relaxed. After all, this matter violated the alliance's rules, so the alliance's attitude towards this matter was extremely important. As long as the alliance was willing to cover it up, any reason would work. Feng Xianjun kept silent. He got up, walked around the room, and mumbled, "What was I here for originally?" Then, he left the room along with the two attendants. In the end, Feng Xianjun didn't give a precise statement. Dao Zhan's heart rate immediately rose again. He understood that the alliance's stance on this issue was still blurry. Their final stance would depend on how they handled it. The alliance wasn't going to be their errand boy. They could only provide the appropriate support to whatever excellent Era did to cover it up. If this issue exploded into a huge mess and couldn't be covered, the alliance would certainly come out with a devotion to righteousness, giving a fair and impartial judgment. Yi Chu is your online name. Your real name is Yi Shu, Dao Zhan suddenly said. Yi Shu understood the implications and nodded his head with a smile. We're leaving, Dao Zhan called out to Kui Li. Kui Li glanced at Chang Xian with unease. He chased after Dao Zhan and whispered his worry to him. Dao Zhan turned his head fiercely and glared at Chang Xian. Then, he glanced at Yi Shu. Yi Shu wasn't stupid. If he was willing to let this reporter listen, then this reporter was most likely trustworthy. Thinking of this point, Dao Zhan didn't say anything and turned around to leave. When he left, he suddenly thought of Feng Xianjun personally coming over unexpectedly. He probably hadn't come to give the team a warm welcome. Team Happy was able to get the alliance's chairman to personally give them a greeting. Dao Zhan suddenly became uneasy again. He wouldn't be able to get a good sleep that night. Room 722. After everyone left, apart from looking at one another, no one knew what to say. This entire thing was caused by Yi Shu, but in the end, the one to wipe his butt wasn't just excellent Era, but the alliance too. It felt like it had nothing to do with him. Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but show admiration for Yi Shu. The few from Happy felt very moved. When they looked at Chang Xian, they saw that he was still standing dumbstruck by the door. Little Chang, you'd better not treat this as interview material and leak it out, Chen Guo said to Chang Xian in a normal voice. Usually, whenever Chang Xian visited Happy, if he saw anything fun, embarrassing, humiliating, he would say, "I'm going to talk about this." It soon became his catchphrase. However, none of the things he reported ever appeared in the papers. He obviously knew about Happy's current fame. Details about their daily lives couldn't be considered news material. However, this time's information was more than ferocious enough. Chang Xian was certain that if he wrote a piece on it, he would be able to make the headlines on the weekly paper. Headlines. For a small reporter like Chang Xian, if he could get his manuscript passed and onto a tofu-sized block on the paper, that was already enough to make him happy for many days. A chance to make the headlines was in front of his eyes. Chen Guo only told him gently not to report it. This wasn't Chen Guo not understanding the severity of the situation, but rather her trust in Chang Xian. She didn't put her guard up against him as if he were an outsider. Chang Xian had originally been conflicted on what to do. Chen Guo's trust in him only added fuel to the fire. Exposing the truth should be the goal of a reporter, but if he revealed the truth, he would feel too evil. Chen Guo expressed her trust in him. If he turned his back and spilled it, Chang Xian would feel too guilty. Don't worry. I won't talk about it. Chang Xian finally made his decision. While this decision made him feel relieved, he couldn't help but feel regret at letting such a huge opportunity go. Feelings of regret and annoyance continued to poke at him. Really, neither going left nor right feels good. Chang Xian wanted to find somewhere with no one around and yell loudly. That would feel great. Just when he was about to leave, Yi Shu suddenly laughed. That type of report isn't too meaningful. Even if you wrote about it, you might not even get praised for it. In fact, your choice to follow us was very wise. There will be many more things worthy of being written about in the future. I understand, Chang Xian replied with surprise. He understood Yi Shu's meaning. Team Happy beating Team Excellent Era and entering the alliance was obviously much more interesting. Chang Xian looked forward to it too, but it wasn't too much. How could it be so easy for a newly formed team to beat Team Excellent Era? But Yi Shu expressed his confidence in what everyone thought was impossible. It was as if this conclusion was set in stone. Others might feel that he was overestimating himself and would laugh and jeer at him. However, Chang Xian felt like while this possibility was small, it wasn't zero. In competition, there was never such a thing as a guaranteed win. Every powerhouse had been toppled by weak opponents before. Why couldn't that happen between Team Happy and Team Excellent Era? Go to bed early, Yi Shu smiled. Chang Xian nodded his head and left. Chen Guo didn't plan on sleeping yet. She first recalled with delight how scared Excellent Era and the Alliance chairman had been frightened. Then, she began thinking about how Excellent Era and the Alliance would handle this issue. In the end, she was worried about what would happen if it wasn't handled well. Wouldn't that be a disaster? You're thinking too much. You probably won't get any information on it in a short amount of time. Whether it's Excellent Era or the Alliance, they can't just suddenly jump out and start talking about Yi Chu and Yi Shu. Trying to force the issue would only make it worse. In order to cover it up, they have to wait for it to be revealed. Whether this reveal is natural or planned doesn't matter. I reckon that they'll plan it themselves. That way it'll be much more controlled. Especially after seeing Old Feng's stance, I think Dao Zan would rather be more proactive. Chen Guo listened to Yi Shu's analysis and felt more confident. Only then did she pull Tang Ru away to go to sleep. On the afternoon of the second day, the 20 participating Challenger League teams had all gathered together. The Alliance had arranged a reception for all of the players. There was a slight adjustment in the schedule. Instead of Monday, the offline matches would start on Tuesday instead. When the esports home paper on Monday came out, besides the highlight matches of the league, there was an eye-catching section of a topic unrelated to the league: Yi Chu? Yi Shu? Chen Guo bought that day's newspaper. She rushed over to Yi Shu's room and handed it over to Yi Shu to look. Oh, they've already started? Yi Shu was calm. He checked and saw that an Excellent Era player found in astonishment that the Team Happy player behind Lord Grimm, Yi Shu, was actually their former team captain, Yi Chu. In view of the past. When looking at the past, there were many questions towards Yi Chu and Yi Shu. Fortunately, this reporter didn't directly point out that Yi Chu was a fake name. The reporter discussed why Yi Shu would change names. Then, the reporter collected material from the Alliance and Excellent Era. This dual identity of Yi Chu and Yi Shu was actually legal? Why did he do that? The article switched topics, pushing the issue in this direction. Yi Shu looked and didn't doubt that this was Excellent Era's writing because afterwards, the reporter analyzed whether Yi Chu was worried that his new team would encounter a lot of pressure from his fans, so he changed his name to Yi Shu and so on. Excellent Era knew that Yi Shu would jump out and explain the true reason, so they used this opportunity to splash a bit of black paint on him. They successfully seized this opportunity. The fans were in an uproar, not about the issue of Yi Chu and Yi Shu, but that Team Happy really had been created by Yi Chu. Sure enough, he really planned on destroying Excellent Era and even put on a fake name. It was too despicable and shameless. Chapter 965. Controversy. Excellent Era has no shame. When Chen Guo heard what Yi Shu had said, she immediately tore the newspaper to shreds. How should we counter that? Chen Guo asked Yi Shu lividly. Beat them, Yi Shu said. What else? Chen Guo asked. Wouldn't that enough? Yi Shu was astonished. That's a must, sure. But what about right now? How should we strike back? Chen Guo asked. We don't really need to. Yishu's expression seemed as if he feared more trouble. Do you have a future? Why do you always take the blame? You're being smeared to sh*t, Chen Guo yelled. Too vulgar, Wei Chen watched with disdain, while he laughed hysterically. Stop laughing, Chen Guo glared. She wasn't in the mood to joke around. She was actually angry. Wei Chen hurriedly refrained himself from laughing, and seriously analyzed the situation. It's not that easy to strike back on this matter. We can't actually tell the truth, right? This was something Excellent Era chose to do. I'm so angry, Chen Guo looked around, as if she was searching for something to smash. However, they would need to pay for things they broke at a hotel, so Chen Guo couldn't find anything suitable to throw around. In the end, Yishu stuffed a pillow into her hands. Chen Guo received the pillow without throwing it, she merely held it while being lost in thought. Don't be angry. We have a competition tomorrow, so let's just leave these matters to them. Don't be distracted, Yishu consoled for the first time. We must beat Excellent Era, Chen Guo said. Of course, Yishu agreed. Chen Guo left. After hearing Yishu's analysis, she knew what sort of storm Excellent Era's manipulation would bring up. Chen Guo also knew that whatever stays unseen, remains clean, but she couldn't help but care about the matter. After taking a look online, she deeply regretted that she couldn't control herself. Last time Excellent Era revealed the fact that Team Happy was created by Yi Chu, the fans got worked up. They even went to besiege Happy Internet Cafe in order to protest. However, Excellent Era and their fans' face were brightly slapped from the esports home paper. Now, Excellent Era finally found a chance to return the new and old grudge, and had a reasonable explanation for the unfinished matter last time. See? We weren't in the wrong. This guy changed his name, so he managed to slip through it. As a result, it seemed as if using the name Yishu was to avoid responsibility. This was why the reaction from Excellent Era's fans was even fiercer than last time. A lot of fans even expressed having complete heartbreak, and that they would change from fans to haters. Chen Guo was annoyed. She explicitly organized what information she knew about the situation, and posted on the forums. She hoped that the fans would reflect on it objectively and logically. The reaction from the post was quite fierce, and there were countless replies. When Chen Guo looked through them, she nearly died from anger. Though there were some who believed her words, the majority of the players were mocking her. Chen Guo thought what she wrote was reasonable, but those people picked some quotes out to mix the truths with lies. Chen Guo tried to speak up and argue, but after disputing for several pages, Chen Guo received a nickname, Choose Dog. Chen Guo wasn't sure if it was someone from Excellent Era, since they deliberately twisted black and white after seeing the truth. She didn't want to give up, so she continued to debate according to the facts. After several pages, Chen Guo upgraded. She was no longer Choose Dog. Someone gave her a new nickname, Ultra Villain. Chen Guo finally gave up. On Tuesday 4/23, the offline tournament finally began. There weren't any opening ceremonies. The league's chairman Feng Xianjun personally came and announced the start of the tournament. There were 4 groups of 5 teams. 2 pairs of teams went against each other, so there would always be a team without an opponent. Apart from pro teams, the majority of the players didn't have experience on stage, so even if that team wasn't required to come, they would still like to witness the stadium's atmosphere. Team Happy managed to pick an empty slot for the first round, but they still came. The biggest difference between the stage now and on match day was naturally the crowd. For many, being watched so attentively by so many people made everything feel uneasy. As a result, this was something the newbies had to learn to adapt to. For Team Happy, it was obvious that people like Yishu wouldn't have such obstacles. As for the newbies, Yishu felt that it wouldn't be much of a problem for Tangru and Steamed Bun. So the ones who needed to adapt were the few remaining members. Despite being a participating team, they couldn't just go on stage to look around since they had no opponent this round. Happy could only sit in the dedicated seats for the contestants on the side and enjoy the match like the rest of the crowd members. The stadium didn't have too many people, but there were teams like Excellent Era who were competing, so the number of seats occupied was already much better than the previous years. The Alliance had considered making an exception by setting the Challenger League in City H, so there would be a good box office. However, on second thought, it meant that they were making it a home ground for Excellent Era. They would be siding with Excellent Era too much, so they could only drop the idea. However, Excellent Era was a powerhouse, so they had fans supporting them all over the country. Let alone the fanatical fans who would pursue their teams everywhere to watch their matches and activities. Many fans in the crowd held up banners and placards in support of Excellent Era. Other teams could only take part in admiring and envying. They weren't on the same level, so they wouldn't fantasize about such treatment. The 8 matches began at the same time, but they didn't finish at the same time. Excellent Era, who was the strongest team here, undoubtedly finished the fastest. Simply put, it was instant destruction for the other team. As for the other 7 matches, some were even tangled up in the individual competition still, while Excellent Era had a complete victory of 10-0. The difference in strength was fairly great. When the pro players of Excellent Era went off stage, they weren't really proud or arrogant. The team that lost also wasn't dispirited or crestfallen. It was as if all of this should have happened. What losers. Chen Guo just had to look down contemptfully at such attitudes. The ones that Team Happy cared about most had to be the 2 matches within their group. The 2 matches formed Group B, Team Traitor vs Team 10 Steps 1 Kill, Team Mysterious Fantasy vs Team Cloudview Pavilion. Teams that could make it to the offline matches had to be fairly strong. They were worthy of being watched. Every year, quite a few pro teams would pick out players that made it this far, and would immediately sign them as pro players. There were active players that entered the pro scene with this as their debut stage. The most well-known players had to be Li Zan of Team Void, and Fang Rui of Team Wind Howl. Those 2 were discovered at the Challenger League, and they were now all-star level players. They were constantly used to advertise the Challenger League. Yi Shu had the same intention. He paid attention to every match in the competition. Compared to the victories and losses, he cared more about every player's performance. However, until now, there wasn't anyone who could make his eyes light up. Even if they were especially outstanding, Yi Shu didn't dare to have high hopes for them. It was unknown how many teams were sitting in the crowd searching for potential stars. It took over an hour for the 8 matches on the first day to completely finish. After the matches in Group B, Team Mysterious Fantasy gained 9 points, and was ranked first. Team 10 Steps 1 Kill was ranked second with 7 points. Team Traitor was ranked third with 3 points, and Team Cloudview Pavilion fourth with 1 point. After watching, Yi Shu had a clearer idea of the strength of the 4 teams. Team Mysterious Fantasy was a pro team, so their strength was obviously stronger than most competitors. However, they were only strong to a certain extent. They weren't able to get a clean set of 10 points like Excellent Era. Instead, they had lost a point in the individual competition. The second round would take place Friday night. In this round, Team Cloudview Pavilion of Group B would be vacant. Team Happy would go against Team 10 Steps 1 Kill, while Team Mysterious Fantasy would go against Team Traitor. In the few days before their match, there was no peace at all. There was a huge wave of controversy over Yi Shu in esports home. This wave had nothing to do with the matter of Yi Shu's identity, which everyone had been worried about earlier. No one had any suspicions about this matter. What people cared about was that God Yi Chu was clashing with Excellent Era in the Challenger League. The fans weren't able to understand, while other people merely watched for fun. As a result, it was extremely heated. As for Happy, they immediately received many requests for an interview from media all over the country. They wished that Happy would make some sort of response towards the matter. The majority of the requests for interviews were rejected. It wasn't until the esports home paper with a page layout just like last week's did everyone see an interview with Yi Shu from Happy. The interview was with Yi Shu, who was also Yi Chu, which was something very rare to see. However, no one really cared about this fact at this point. In this interview, everyone was able to see Yi Shu's response towards the heated question. I created a team to join the Challenger League. Excellent Era also joined because they were relegated, so we happened to meet. That's all. So you're saying that you were already preparing to create a team before Excellent Era was eliminated? The journalist asked. That's right. After I left Excellent Era, I picked up my current character in the newly opened 10th server. I met some companions along the way, so we decided to create a team. Judging from what you just said, you guys didn't have that sort of ambition at the start? The journalist asked. Yep, everyone was just playing for fun in the beginning. If I had such ambitions, why would I have retired to begin with? What was it that caused you to make such a big resolution in the end? From what I know so far, your team was formed in an internet cafe across street from Excellent Era. There was even a lot of unpleasant disagreements with Excellent Era fans at the time, the journalist mentioned. That's because I later found out that the people in my team had a lot of potential. They definitely had the skill, so they should have the opportunity to perform on a better stage. That's why I decided to give it my all in the Challenger League. Then why are you targeting Excellent Era in particular? Some people think that it's your way to promote the hype, the journalist asked. Of course we have to target Excellent Era. This is because Excellent Era is undoubtedly the strongest opponent in the Challengers League. By targeting Excellent Era, we can show our ambition. But you were once a core member of Excellent Era. Now you have to compete with Excellent Era in the Challenger League to get the one and only spot. How do you feel about it? The journalist asked. Do all I can to beat them. This is me showing my respect towards glory. Have you ever thought that doing this would hurt a lot of people? The journalist asked. This is not something I can decide. This is the nature of competition. There can only be one champion. Then what about the champion of this season's Challenger League? The journalist asked. I would like to say that it's going to be happy, but wouldn't that seem disrespectful towards our opponents? Let's wait and see. But you still said it. This remark came from Chong Xian, the interviewer.